welcome to the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, August 5th, 2022, special session. We are in order. And I would say that, let's see, Supervisor Kavanaugh is attending telephonically. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman. Supervisor Kavanaugh, if you can just announce that you're attending telephonically.
This is Supervisor Kavanaugh attending telephonically.
Sort of. Okay. All right. First off, item is discussion, approval, disapproval of the appointment of a county recorder pursuant to ARS 16-230A2 to fulfill the remainder of the term left by the resignation of Virginia Ross effective August 5, 2022, subject to a background check. Gentlemen, does anyone have any comments?
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to request that we go into executive session on this item so that I myself can receive some legal advice as to whether there are any specific legal requirements for holding the position of recorder, and if there are any specific certifications or qualifications that are required, and is there a legal time requirement for this board to take action? What happens if we delay action today? And there's just some, these are just some of the items that I need for some legal advice.
Okay. So.
And when we come out, I would like to discuss all that in public so that the public knows the same questions were just asked.
Completely, I agree.
Okay, so I need a motion then, please.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session.
Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're in executive session.
Aye.
Aye. Supervisor Kavanaugh on?
Yes.
Okay, there you are. Okay, fine. We are back in session.
So if I, just to kind of set this up.
Go ahead and then.
Because we did make a promise that whatever our discussion was going to be in there was going to come out here. So the questions I was asking pertaining to the our recorder's office, you had some definitions that you were able to pull up. Could you read that to the public, what the definitions or what the requirements are?
Certainly. I apologize. My voice is a little raspy, but I certainly have the information for you. One of the questions that was explicitly asked are, what are the requirements for the recorder? You can find those in ARS 11-401. They're actually pretty straightforward and relatively simple. The recorder must be 18 years of age. They must be a resident of the state of Arizona. They must be an elector of Pinal County, and they must be able to read and write the English language.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, and also they must be a resident of the county.
Correct. Well, yeah, elector requires you to be a resident, but yes. So the elector, when you're an elector of the county, you have to be a resident of the county.
Okay, but then is there any kind of certification, anything that goes along with that they ultimately have to get?
There are certifications they can obtain, but they are not required to have those prior to their appointment or their election.
For something as important as that position?
Our Constitution and our laws, our ARS sets out the standards. It's not the standards that this individual board necessarily creates.
No, I get it. Yeah. Okay.
I hate to point it out to you, Mike, but those are the same requirements we have.
I know, and I get phone calls about my incompetency here anyway, especially now, right? And so, you know what? My wife brings that up to me all the time, so I don't need to be reminded of it at this point, especially now.
Chair, if I could just very briefly, I think there were some questions just about the authority of the board as well. I can go through very quick and lay it out for all of the audience and the board as well, so it's clear.
Please do.
So under 38-291, vacancy is defined. Obviously, Ms. Ross has submitted her resignation. That qualifies under their statutory scheme as a valid vacancy. When a vacancy exists, sort of generically, 11251 subsection 16 says that the board has the authority to appoint vacant county offices, but specifically ARS 16230 says that a vacancy in certain county offices, which explicitly includes the recorder's office. So when a vacancy occurs in the recorder's office, it is this board's obligation to appoint a replacement. Because of the timing of this particular resignation, because it's happened after the first part of the election has occurred, any appointment that you do make would be for the remainder of the term, meaning it would run through the 2024 cycle.
Okay. And then one of the other questions was, is there a legal time frame that is required of us to either fill this position or what happens?
So there is a necessity that there be a recorder that is able to effectuate the responsibilities, sign the documents, the paperwork, et cetera. Under 38462, because this board has to separately approve any chief deputy, the chief deputy does have the authority in the absence of the elected to fill those duties. So if this board were not to act today, the current chief deputy at the recorder's office would essentially on a temporary basis fill that position and be able to exercise those authorities until such time as you appoint the ultimate recorder.
Okay. All right. That helps me out. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Supervisor Kavanaugh?
Mr. Chairman, who is the current chief deputy?
I believe it's Donna Diaz.
Did you hear that, sir? Donna Diaz?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I can't. Okay. Any other
No,
comments?
I'm good on my end.
All right. I am going to allow, in this session, I'm going to allow comments from the public only on this item, nothing else. Are there any in the audience that would care to address the board at this time? Mr. Bean. And for the record, please state your name and generally where you live.
Tom Bean, Casa Grande. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the board. I've been discussing this situation with various people who have worked in the elections office under Ms. Ross. I know, Chairman, that you stated that she was the best person for the job. The employees say no. I have the name of a person that would be that best person available. She is from Pinal County. She has worked in the office. She was county elections director down in Santa Cruz. She knows every platform involved in working elections. She is an expert, and strangely, her twin brother is also that. He's the one that was sent up from Tucson while I was watching the A&L of the machines here a couple of weeks ago. He's the one that they sent up to help Pinal County.
Please, Mr. Goodman, Supervisor.
I guess, are you talking about her role as a recorder, or are you talking about her role that she has currently with her appointment of our elections?
With the elections.
Well, that's not even the subject we're talking about.
That's very true.
Point made, I hope. I did try to send you guys an email. Some or another, it asked me, do you want to block this person? And I said no, and it blocked it.
Well,
So-
we've not, or I've not received
so-
it yet. But to his,
I thought this was germane. I'm sorry if it's not germane.
no, this is merely about the appointment of the county recorder. I guess. Okay.
The next county recorder you're talking about,
Yep.
right? Apology.
All right. Are there others that wish to address the board? And again,
Hi
state
again.
your name.
My name is Belinda Rodriguez, and I live in Gold Canyon, District 5. Again, as I have said yesterday, you have to have someone that has detail-oriented project management, lots of the skills that will take this process and make it an effective and successful one. And I believe that the choices that you have made so far, it gives me tremendous pleasure to know that you have selected Virginia as the elections director, and that you are considering Dana Rossi or Lewis Rossi for this position. Dana has just shown as she meets, with different entities, different groups, her knowledge, her detailed, analytical, organized way of being. I just don't think in all the people, and I've been in a lot of meetings in different districts, that you could find a person any better than Dana to do this. She has the experience in elections. She now has been in the recorder's office, and I think she would be a tremendous asset to this whole process as well.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any others that wish to address the board?
Nancy Hawkins, Casa Grande, Arizona. And I just want to say thank you for the decision that you made yesterday. I think it's a terrific decision. Dana is somebody that if you've worked with the elections or with the recorder's office, she has been right there forefront. She knows her job. She works, and she's communicated. Anyway, she talks to you. That municipality is a word that I like muni better now.
Thank you. Any others?
I just want to say, Kathy Nowak, Santan Valley, I want to second everything anyone has said. They said it much better than I. She has got the experience on both sides. She works well with people, no problems. She works especially well with Virginia. I think this is the best solution, and I thank you guys for making your decision yesterday, and I hope I'm as happy about the one today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others that care to address the board? I didn't put that specification on there. Anyone in the room that cares to address the board?
Thank you. My name is Kathleen Wynn. I live in Pima County, and I'm the one that sued you over the 63,000 ballots. So because I think it's important that we understand that whether you win or lose, there's a legal process that has to take place. And right now, you need the most knowledgeable, professional people that you can. And I think that what you did with Virginia was brilliant. And I think that Dana, under her, she's obviously come up and been mentored by her. I think this is the best decision that you can make at this time. It is, as someone who received over 100 calls and texts from people that were out in Pinal County on Election Day, I systematically turned them over to your county attorney, Kent Volkmer. I believe that you have to put your best foot forward and do the path of least resistance in the most professional that you can right now to restore confidence in the vote and in this county. And I would greatly endorse your selection of Dana today as a candidate and as someone who's worked in elections in this state for over 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any others that come on down?
I promise to be short. Gail Peters from Pinal County, Santan Valley. And I want to say I have enjoyed knowing Dana and her absolute dedication and commitment to election integrity. I think she's a great person to put in this job. She is fair to both sides of the fence, and she's always open to talk and discuss situations. I just appreciate so much that you are recognizing her great skill, and that Virginia did when she brought her into her office a short time ago. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any others that care to address the board?
Roberto Revelis, resident of Gold Canyon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the biggest challenge in naming a new county recorder is to continue in the effort to restore public trust in our elections process. I think that is the ultimate goal and should be. And so I applaud the commitment that was offered by my representative on the board, Mr. Surtee, that whatever is discussed behind closed doors ought to be shared with the public as part of that restoration of trust. I also think it's important that the face of those attempting to restore trust should be the Board of Supervisors and not an election denier like Sheriff Mark Lamb. So going forward, I'm pleased with the process you're using, Mr. Chairman. Please continue, because trust is still out there waiting to be restored. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any others that wish to address the board? All right. Seeing none. Thank you. Are there any other comments from the board?
Well, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, first of all, I just want to publicly say that I take this personal. This is all on Mike Goodman. This whole thing was under my watch, even though there's 4 others, and they can say whatever they want to say. But this is under my watch. And so as we're moving forward, I'm making my commitment that I'm going to be a lot more attentive to what we're going through here. And I'm feeling that it's the same way from our other board members. But I think we have, there's not a particular name on the agenda, right?
That is
and
correct.
so maybe we have some discussion about who that's going to be, because I think there's already been, obviously, people are here to hear some announcements, and so we don't even, maybe we can move that along if that's okay.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from those that are here. I mean, from the applicant themselves.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
You may, and then Supervisor Surtee.
I think what Supervisor Goodman's trying to say is, if Ms. Lewis is in the audience, which I know she is, maybe she could step up and let us know if she is interested in this position, and give us some type of a verbal resume, is maybe the way to put it, and for all of us to hear and understand.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Supervisor Surtee.
I just wanted to make the public announcement that the next several meetings that we have set aside time to talk about election issues. And on the 17th, we didn't even have a meeting scheduled, and it's going to be all about election issues in a work session. And we will want to hear things that we think went wrong and for future remedies, et cetera.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, just for those of you in the audience, if you get the county feed, there will be numerous updates as to what we find and how we're fixing things. So just be aware. You'll get kind of blasted with information in the next few weeks. So please be aware. And hopefully don't get tired of hearing from us. And so with that, Ms. Lewis, would you care to come up? Rossi, I'm sorry.
Rossi Lewis. Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Dana Lewis, with the Pinal County Recorder's Office. I'm the assistant to the recorder, and I currently reside in Casa Grande, Arizona. I am humbled by this opportunity to help establish trust, again, in the elections process and working hand in hand with an amazing mentor who is Virginia Ross. I'm willing to answer questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
Did you say? Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor
acknowledging me. Okay,
Goodman,
good.
yes.
Did you say how long have you been in the elections department? The recorder's office.
I started in 2019 as an elections specialist under Michelle Forney, and that's where you could say that I got bit by the elections bug, as she used to say. In January of 2022, I was appointed as the assistant to the recorder and her compliance officer for the recorder's department.
Okay, so you were working in the elections department.
I was helping make sure the process of the early voting system was running smoothly and securely during this process, sir.
Okay, and then you moved over to working with Virginia.
Well, that's what I started doing in January, yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That helps.
Yes. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dana, could you please explain to the public and the board any certifications that you have or other education that would support you in this role?
I am currently a certified election official for the state of Arizona, and I'm attending Auburn University in pursuit of my master's certificate in election and registration administration, sir. I hope to receive that certification in 2023.
Did you serve in the military in any capacity?
I did. I was a staff sergeant in the Air Force.
and what were your duties, and how did that role support what you are being considered for today?
I was a personnelist, so I was an administrator, and then also a security forces augmentee. So security is kind of in my background.
And in this election, without going into huge detail, but you only worked in the, forgive me, I'm getting this huge echo. You worked in the early voting, but you were not hands-on in this election, correct?
Could you please clarify that question, sir?
Did you participate in the development and implementation of this election that went astray?
No, sir.
Because you're with the recorder's office. You were not at the elections department at that time, right?
That is correct, sir.
If you took this role, what would be your top 3 to 5 items that you would tackle?
To continue onward with the recorder's amazing strategy with this department. I'm filling some pretty big shoes. My mentor, Virginia, has been amazing. I want to ensure that her staff continues to be recognized going forward and making sure that the early voting process, the integrity is there and secure. Being a liaison to Virginia as she needs from elections to the early voting process, and the voter registration department, and also all of the 5 satellite offices for recording for Pinal County. The recorder's position is much more than just early voting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Surtee.
Can we get Kent Volkmore or Chris Keller to explain the separation of the recorder's office and the elections department, that it did change in the last several years, and it's not like other counties, because a lot of people are still in the dark on that.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Chair, Vice Chair, it's a great question. There's been a lot of confusion about that. There are counties in Arizona where the recorder's office is exclusively in charge of the entire elections process. Ours is actually sort of split, if you will. We have the early voting, which the recorder's office is responsible for, and then we have the actual day of election that occurs on, for us, it would have been August 2nd, and we're going to have one November 3rd or thereabouts. So what happens is the election director is in charge of day of voting. The recorder's office is all the early voting. So when Ms. Lewis says she was a part of the early voting, that's one portion. She had nothing to do, and the recorder's office had nothing to do with that. Although I would give you one caveat. That's not completely true, because Dana actually called me on several occasions and said, hey, that's not quite right. You might want to fix it. So she was not directly involved, but I know she was involved in at least some oversight, just trying to be helpful, not in an official capacity, but even in an unofficial capacity, trying to actively identify that there were errors being made based on her prior experience. So she had nothing to do with what's been called the debacle or the snafu or anything else. And the recorder's office was not involved in that portion whatsoever. Does that answer your question, sir?
I hope it answers the question for the people that did not know, yes.
All right. Any other questions? Supervisor Miller.
I did have another question for Dana, if you don't mind.
Sir.
And you've always been very helpful. Anytime I've reached out to you for clarification, you were very responsive, and I really appreciate all of that. But I did run into you, and I think Attorney Volkmer explained this, ran into early on, and you were taking people around and showing where to go. You came by my office, and we had a little discussion. I believe that was probably the team that was to pick up the early ballots on a daily basis, so you were involved in that?
Yes,
portion
sir.
of it?
So,
Can you explain that a little bit for me?
absolutely. Under the discretion of Virginia Ross, one of the things that we did different in Pinal County during the early voting process is not only were our ballot drop boxes all on county property, but they were also on camera. And one of the things that we also implemented was bipartisan couriers that went to each of those drop boxes. They had really stringent chain of custody forms, and as they returned back, they used what has been dubbed the nuclear box. What it is it's a ballot transfer box that has been clearly labeled, and it has a cage around it, and it has first ever GPS locks, so that during the process of the transfer of the early ballots from any of those boxes or recorders' offices, that they were locked, and I could tell where they were at all times, gentlemen.
Yes. I remember that day. So thank you, and thank you for the explanation, because it was almost over my head when you were trying to explain it to me that day. But job well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions from the board?
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Kavanaugh.
Time is of the essence. I think it's about 95 days until Election Day, but the ballots have to go out earlier than that. And so whomever we install in this position has to be up and running in about 5 days. So the public may think, this is a rush, and their perception would be correct. We have to install somebody quickly who knows what they're doing in the recorder's office and in the elections office. And I think it's wise that we act swiftly. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Kavanaugh. All right, are there any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none, may I have a recommendation for the county recorder appointment?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Dana Lewis as our new Pinal County recorder, effective immediately.
I'll second.
Well, okay, are there any further appointments before we go there? Don't move that yet. I was just asking for appointments.
Oh.
Are there any other appointments?
I just thought we'd get right to it.
Time is of the essence, as I understand that, but,
Is there any other, anyway,
Are there any other
nominees?
Nominees for appointment from the board?
Go ahead and stand up.
Oh.
If you want that.
Okay, from the board. Okay, seeing and hearing none, we have a recommendation for county recorder appointment, and I would request that we get a motion, please.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to. Okay. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Dana Lewis as our Pinal County recorder, effective immediately.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
I have a motion and 2 seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. 5 in favor. I'd say motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Lewis. All right. And with that, I'd say are we doing the in our meeting? I'm sorry, I don't have it in my notes, but we are doing the swearing in,
Yes.
during the meeting.
Yes, that is correct, Chairman.
Okay, then let's swear.
If you would please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Dana Lewis,
I, Dana Lewis,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and the laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies,
and defend them against all enemies,
foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of the office of Pinal County Recorder.
Discharge the
Duties
of the office of Pinal County Recorder
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
And with that, there's no further business. This meeting is adjourned.